it will take some sacrifices.
TD Bank is coming out and saying the quiet part out loud, which is Toronto is crashing, not only the housing market, but the job market too. And this is the financial engine of Canada. So the job market in Canada's economic engine is tanking. So let's take a listen to what TD's economist is saying here. So Canada's largest city accounted for about 20% of the nation's gross domestic product in 2021. And Ontario contributes roughly 40% of federal government revenues, of which Toronto supplies a big portion, according to a report by TD Economics. So for a lot of people who are thinking, you know, Toronto doesn't matter, I'm not in Toronto, it's a large chunk of the economy. And, you know, Toronto has been relying on real estate. And, you know, real estate is in such a bad place, it's crashing. They won't admit it, but it is crashing.
The condominium market is absolutely dead right now.
And the economy is crashing also simultaneously. And both of those are connected. It's a self-reinforcing loop there. So the city that employs a fifth of the nation's workforce now has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, as it is battered by the headwinds from multiple directions. The jobless rate in Toronto has soared in recent years from a low of 5.6% in 2023 to nearly 9% as of September of this year.
Elbows up. Elbows up.
Its highest level since 2012 outside of the pandemic, said TD economist Rishi Sondhi. So it's really showing, obviously, the job market extremely bad in Toronto. And then you've got this, which we've talked about before. Another troubling statistic, roughly 1 in 5 young people aged 15 to 24 in the city are unemployed. Just think about that. That is a depressing number. And TD Bank is also saying the quiet part out loud here on immigration. So they said that recently population growth explained the climb in Toronto's jobless rate. Since the end of 2023, the city's labor force has grown by 4.5%, far exceeding the rest of Ontario and the jobs available. So they're basically saying there that the immigration, a lot of those people coming in, they can't find jobs. They can't get into the workforce. That's not a good thing. And then you've got Toronto area home prices tumble for 9th straight month in worst downturn since the 1990s. It's just a downturn, guys. It's not a crash. Just go to sleep. It's not a crash. It's so funny when they say things like this. And then they put a line underneath. Home prices are down 21% since the 2022 peak, with detached houses down 25%. Yeah, but no crash at all. Toronto area real estate prices are down for the 9th straight month, about 21% since the 2022 peak, in the worst downturn since the 1990s. Just think about that. Over 30 years, you've got the worst downturn in housing, but it's not a crash. Don't worry about it. This is just a little bump in the road before the next leg up. It puts the average property price across the region at just over $1 million, about 7% lower than October last year. So declining year over year. And you know, another thing I want to note here is $1 million is just not affordable. So if we go to Gemini, the median salary in Toronto for a household is $84,000. That means that with $1 million average home price, that's nearly 12 times income, which is just completely insane to even think about. So that is not affordable for the average person. Let me make that clear. So sales are also down 9.5% compared to October 2024. Meanwhile, new listings were up 2.7% year over year to 16,069. So way more new listings, more than double, actually nearly triple the amount of new listings coming on the market than sales that are happening. But like I said, it's not a crash, guys. Just go back to sleep. Toronto is not crashing. And obviously this has influences across the country because a lot of these people who are flipping homes and making a lot of money off real estate in Toronto were actually spreading out and branching out to places like Calgary, Edmonton, and other places. And places in Atlantic Canada are still going up, but eventually, just like everything, it will come to an end. So average dwelling prices in the Toronto area, and you can basically see there what's happened over the past couple of years, although that chart doesn't look the best graphic there. So average detached home prices have fallen about 25% to 1.35 million, and semis 24% to 1.03 million since February 2022. In comparison, condos are down about 18% in the region to 660,000. And again, you know, that's still 6 to 7 times income. It's completely insane, and it's not affordable for the average person. And with a condo, it's a complete scam. I was saying this back in 2022, you know, before prices actually really started to come down hard.
People are going to be absolutely horrified when they end up in this situation like behind me where they can't sell, and they are going to be stuck with this massive ever increasing condo fee payment that is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And what do you think is going to happen when people realize about this? It's going to be an absolute disaster. And think about condos, because they are the most popular investment product out there.
The condominium market is absolutely dead right now.
Condos are a complete scam because guess what? You're paying that condo fee. You're just replacing that extra mortgage payment that you would have buying a detached home with a condo fee that will go up with the rate of inflation and more, probably because of the building maintenance and the fact that the buildings age and everything like that. It's just completely insane. And there's so much corruption on condo boards. You guys let me know. I've heard the stories. They are completely insane because guess what? Canada is a corrupt country. And, you know, it's not just Mexico anymore. It's Canada. So asked if the real estate market is crashing, Mercer said prices have responded to the lack of affordability. It's just like nobody, apart from this guy and probably you who view this channel as well, will actually call a spade here. I don't know why. I don't know why people are so hesitant to call it a crash. It's almost like the real estate industry has got some sort of grip on everybody. Don't call it a crash, whatever you do. Call it a downturn, call it a little itsy bitsy gully.
Itsy bitsy little gully right now.
Whatever it is. But it does always make you think of that meme in The Big Short, which I just played, because that's exactly what's happening there. You know, the market is actually crashing and the real estate agents, they're just trying to cover it up and say, oh, it's just a little bump in the road on the way to the next upswing. The Bank of Canada lowered its key interest rate to 2.25% in late October, which some experts hope may spur sales. But that hasn't happened. They've been cutting for a long time, and that is still yet to spur on sales. So why is that going to change right now? And it's still a lot higher than in 2019. And they're saying here, as to how low prices can go, Mercer said it's hard to say, but we could be at or approaching the bottom. And they've been saying that for a long time. And you know, Shazzy posted this: Durham home prices have now dropped 30% from peak as suburbs lead Toronto region price slump. But again, it's not a crash, guys. But going back to that guy in the previous article there who's saying, you know, this may be the bottom, it's actually when you start to hear the Jim Cramers of Canadian real estate start to say prices are just going to continue going down, and they say it as if it's a given, like it's just concrete and written in stone.
Maybe the magic's starting to fade away.
And they are starting to say that. And that is something that I would note, because that is a big red flag, because these were the same people that were saying in 2021, you know, prices are never going to go down. It's just going to continue forever. Immigration, and different things like that. But I have noticed that they're changing tone now, and they're like, well, prices in 2026, obviously they're going to go down, as if it's a given. So that makes me very wary and makes me question more whether it could be a bottom, possibly in in 2026, because it's all about psychology and market dynamics. It's not just about the statistics, which is where these real estate agents and mortgage brokers generally just get caught up in the statistics and forget about the market dynamics and the sentiment, which is a major part of a market with no fundamentals. And then Shazzy posted this: Toronto housing market is dying, and here's how much average prices have dropped. So these headlines, you're seeing them across the board. And what does it look like for people who want to rent out those houses in places like Toronto? Well, in Canada as a whole, average asking rents fall for 13th straight month to $2,105 in October. And just remember, guys, inflation is not negative. You've got rents that are negative. So that is really a total disaster for people investing in the housing market or considering investing in the housing market. You really have to make those numbers work, the yields work, and they just don't work. And then you've got to ask the question, well, why wouldn't you just buy somewhere where they do work, like some states in the United States? Why would you buy in Canada where they don't, where you're going to get a lower return? And global investors, they're certainly not coming. You're seeing the capital that is going out the door. It's not coming through it.
Yeah, boy.
So asking rents in Canada were down 2.2% in October from a year earlier to an average of $2,105, marking the 13th straight month of annual declines. Despite rent prices having come down for more than a year, average asks are still 6.2% higher than 3 years ago and 14% above pre-pandemic levels in October 2019. But what they don't point out is that it's just the nominal rise there. That's not adjusted for inflation. So yeah, okay, prices are now up 14% since 2019. People's wages, in some cases, they might have gone up 5 or 10%. And let's face it, inflation in that time period has gone up 30, 40, 50% in some cases. So anybody who's dealing with that sort of return is just being laughed at. I mean, it's an absolute joke. I mean, government bonds have delivered a way better return. They've absolutely destroyed housing. And we're talking about government debt paper here, US Treasuries. So absolutely crazy what's going on here. And then this repost by Shazzy, Danielle Foch, RIP student housing, rooming housing investors, international study permits to fall by half, according to RBC. So Canada's biggest bank is saying that this is going to go down massively. So I'm sure that means that on the back end there, they're tightening up lending, they're doing more due diligence, especially for investors and investor properties.
What?
I mean, no, they're not doing that. If you don't catch the sarcasm there, of course they're not doing that. And that is the point. You know, the risk is just building and building in the financial system. And it's just like nobody can see it because it's not at the surface level yet. And by the time it's at the surface level, it will be too late. And all these people who said, oh, the financial institutions, they were the safest thing ever, they'll suddenly flip-flop and they'll be like, oh, how did we not see this coming? No, they'll never say that. Of course they won't. But they'll be sat there saying, oh my God, these are so risky, all these risks and everything. We saw this coming, didn't we? When they saw nothing, as usual. And then guess what? Mark Carney comes out in his budget and he says, buying a new home, yeah, you get a 15% tax, but buying a new yacht, tax-free. And it shows what this guy here is really doing. Obviously, he's an elitist, globalist bankster, and we know that for sure this is a great buying opportunity for his buddies who want to buy yachts. And this is just really what this is for. It's for his friends. It's for his pals.
It will take some sacrifices.
Elbows up. Elbows up.
And don't think things like this wouldn't happen if the Conservatives were in charge as well, because they would be handing out favors just as well. And then again, from Danielle Foch, GTA house prices fell in every category, even 416 detached down 9.1% year over year. You can see the sales, all the declines there. You can see the average price is down across the 416. It's down across the 905. Pretty much everything is down here. In fact, there is nothing which is up apart from semi-detached, which is just flat on the year, and that's for sales in the 416. So, I mean, it just goes to show, and you've got a market that's incredibly illiquid that you have to remember. So a lot of those prices, you're seeing the prices come down to a point, but that might not actually be reflecting the real price that you can get if you go and negotiate, because you've got a lot of negotiating power in the market at the moment, which you may not have in 2 or 3 years. I mean, I think Canadian real estate long term will be a investment, and it will be performing very similarly to how it's performed over the past 5-6 years, where it goes up massively, comes down, and inflation and rates will be doing the same thing as politicians are going to just do stimulus. I mean, we've seen it with Trump. He is saying that he's going to be doing stimulus as well. So stimulus is the way forward here. And then this chart comes from John Flynn. Great content that John Flynn posts on YouTube and X. Give him a follow. So this is the change from peak, the average price here. You can see that Durham region is down over 30% here, the highest in the country. Then you've got Peel, which is a massive region as well. You know, this includes Brampton, Mississauga, and that is down 28.6%. You've got Waterloo region, again, big university town. That was going to be the tech hub. That is down 28.3%. You've got Halton down 25.8%. The Niagara region, where John Flynn is, 25.6%. So you got all these declines here, including now even Calgary and Edmonton. Edmonton down 3.2%, Calgary down 1.1%, Nova Scotia down 5.7%. Do you remember when Nova Scotia was absolutely booming? You know, Nova Scotia was never going to go down in price. And then Quebec and Montreal still hanging on to gains here at 1.5%, but the unemployment rate in those areas is a lot lower. And then Danielle Foch also posted this: we are back in major excess supply territory in GTA real estate. Market is stuck in the largest gap we've ever seen between active listings versus number of sales ever. So you can see the gap here is just completely insane, but it's illustrating the market dynamics that are at play right now. Obviously, it definitely seems at this moment in time that prices are going to continue declining, but next year is going to be a very, very interesting year, because you've got to think, like, the bad news for Canada, the economic reality for Canada in 2025 has been so bad. How can it get worse in 2026? It probably will, but we just don't know how at this point. So it's going to be really interesting, but there's also probabilities that it could get better if the courts throw out all the Trump tariffs.
Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world.
If the sentiment improves a lot, if the unemployment rate comes down, we'll have to see what happens. But at the moment, it just looks like these trends are going to continue. They're strong trends right now. And then you've got a new Nanos CTV poll that shows 25% of Atlantic Canadians report missing bill payments to afford food. Good thing you voted Liberal and they gave you nothing in the budget.
It will take some sacrifices.
Elbows out. Elbows up.
So you've just got an insane amount of people that are missing bill payments to afford food. And that is literally like a depression level sentence right there. Saying that, it's like you're in a depression. It is a depression, because when people just can't afford to put food on the table, you're failing as a country. I mean, that's a third world problem when you really think about it. And even in a lot of countries that are third world, well, they can just grow food. Whereas in Canada, in the winter, you can't do that because the weather is absolutely shit. So you really rely on actually purchasing and buying food. And guess what? People cannot afford it. So it's just an absolute disaster. And then Shazzy also posted this. They tell us crime is down, but on October 25th at 4 a.m. in Mississauga, 2 intruders broke through metal bars and looted the phone guy's store. So it's just more crime that is going on, you know, in these world-class cities like Toronto and Mississauga. These are just such great places to live, and you've just got crime like this going on. It's absolutely hilarious when people say Mexico is dangerous, you know, people might invade your homes, and you're like, have you looked at Toronto? Have you looked at Vancouver? Have you looked at Calgary? Have you looked at what's going on outside your window before you start saying that? Of course, crime is everywhere, but it's absolutely exploding in Canada, and you know, it's very, very interesting what's going on here. And then Mark Nixon posted this on X. UN, we demand stronger regulation of social media because apparently humanity can't be trusted to think for itself anymore. The same people who lied about wars, pandemics, and climate targets now want to decide what's true. Take a listen to this.
The spread of hatred and lies online is causing grave harm to our world. Misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech are fueling prejudice
Who decides
and violence,
what is what?
exacerbating divisions and conflicts, demonizing minorities, and compromising the integrity of elections. Threats to information integrity are not new, but they are proliferating and expanding with unprecedented speed on digital platforms and supercharged by AI technology.
What they don't know, though, is that it's due to the distrust in governments and institutions that people have, especially in the West. And this is happening because of a fundamental deterioration that people are seeing in their standard of living. So they're thinking, well, how can I trust these people who are saying, I have your back, we'll do the right thing, as they do?
We will be thoughtful, we'll be transparent, we'll be fair.
But in reality, they see in their life, their standard of living is collapsing. So what they are saying is just straight up lies and bullshit. And they realize that. And that means that people are not trusting what they hear in the mainstream media as much. They're not trusting what they hear from globalist organizations like the UN, like the World Economic Forum, the IMF, all these global agencies. There's more critical thinking that's going on. And that is what they really don't like. That's what these globalists hate. And that is a good thing that that is actually happening. And then this was also put on X here. DoorDash stock collapses over 20% after reporting weaker than expected Q3 2025 earnings. This was last week. And it absolutely tanked here. I mean, you've got to remember that in Canada, the United States, DoorDash is absolutely huge. So obviously, if their earnings are down big time, people aren't spending money on food. And that's not a good sign at all. Obviously, this will be heavily impacted by the United States side because they're a much larger share of their earnings than, let's say, Canada. But it shows the heartbeat of the US economy and that it's not doing well. And then you also had this as well. The CEO of Kraft Heinz has said, we now have one of the worst consumer sentiments we have seen in decades.
No! God, please, no! No!
So if that doesn't worry you, I don't know what will. And he's not talking about Canada. He's talking about the United States, which, might I add, is Canada's largest client, even with all the tariffs and everything that's going on. And if you look at Canada's economy right now and you think it's bad, well, how bad is it going to be with the US economy now worsening as well? And that's something we got to think about that's unfortunately going to play into 2026 more and more in weakening the Canadian economy. And then Shazzy posted this. Trump just said it out loud. We have all the cards. He's halting trade talks with Canada, calling us difficult and bragging about economic power over us. Take a listen to this.
Specifically, why are you deciding to end trade talks with Canada, and what rate are you looking to set?
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. You know, we hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult. And they put a charge, and they were a little bit early, we found out about it. So, and we have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. You know, they copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. So I said we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act.
Is there anything
Straighten out their act. Strong words from President Trump there.
Elbows out. Elbows up.
But you've got to think about this. Obviously, the United States has massive power over Canada, but you've also got to realize that the United States is in trouble too. Their economy is also tanking. You know, Trump is never going to admit that, obviously, but the fact that stimulus checks might be on the cards in the United States is not by coincidence with the midterms coming around the corner. So you've got the US economy that is also weakening now, and that will likely be because of the tariffs. Tariffs are just another tax. If you slap a 10-15% sales tax on every item in your country, then yeah, you're going to have an economic downturn. And you know, people think that, oh, this is great, but the reality is it's like thinking the government taking your money and then spending it is going to be more efficient than you doing that exact same thing. The reality is it isn't. It's all a facade. It's all fake. It's just another fugazi, as the Italians say.
Fairy dust.
We've got to keep an eye on all these things heading into 2026. But what do you think about the Toronto housing market? Do you think it's crashing, or do you think it's just a little bump in the road? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video. Help support my work by getting the best VPN in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.